So the other day, I made a video about the new carbines that were released in the early December patch, and on the whole, I gave them a fairly negative review. However, one of the guys who watched that video informed me that the stats that the game displays for some of the weapons are not entirely accurate, with some unlisted stat tweaks. Specifically, this was relevant to the new carbine for the NC, the Razor. And if that's true, I need to do a new review of the weapon so that my review of it would contain accurate information. So the original video that was scheduled next was postponed to make room for this one, which is a revisit of the Razor. So I asked that guy to send me a link to where he got his information. He did so, and I got pointed to this website displayed here and found this chart. Now, I had never heard about these guys before, so I had no idea if their site was credible or not. Rather than go digging to search for credibility, I decided to do an independent test to check and confirm that the chart here was right. One of the primary weapon differences for the Razor was faster projectile speed, so I tested that first. Now I'm going to show you one of the film tests on screen. The test I performed was to film shooting a target from the same range with each weapon and seeing how long it took the round to hit the target. I looked at the footage and collected from one frame before firing to one frame after the red friendly fire indicator. For the first shot, all you'll see is a quick flash, so what I did was I took each record, copied each 30 times, and made them play next to each other. You'll notice that they fall out of sync, and the Razor completes its 30 copies before the Merc does. Specifically, it took 13 frames for the Razor, 14 for the Merc. According to the chart, we're looking at a speed of 500 versus a speed of 560. So 500 divided by 13, which is a little under 40. That's within the acceptable margin of error for this test, and I performed several others at different ranges that received similar results. Basically, that means that the weapon does have increased projectile speed. So for the time being, I'm reasonably convinced that this chart contains accurate information. And unless I find out otherwise, this video will stay up. So what we're going to do is revisit the Razor and its relevance to the new conglomerate carbines, specifically taking this chart into account and not the in-game weapon statistics, which are apparently not accurate. Let's get started, shall we? So the weapon that the Razor is most similar to is the Mercenary, the default NC carbine. So let's see how it's different. The Planetside 2 weapon stats indicated a trait of fire rate for reload speed, but the Merc has a pretty fast reload speed as it is. The Razor offers the highest reload speed of any NC carbine, but I still don't think that reload speed will be a very large factor in selecting the weapon, since it will still be better to switch to your pistol considering the quality of NC sidearms. Reload speed is a convenience, not really a necessity in most circumstances. So apart from reload speed, what are the differences? Well, considering the projectile speed benefit and rate of fire of both weapons, let's run some numbers. In return for using the Razor and dumping the Merc, you gain about a 12% projectile speed increase and lose 8.3% of your fire rate. But let's look at the weapon's other stats. Now, you'll notice that the stats for the two guns are nearly identical in other categories, except one. From a technical standpoint, both these weapons have identical accuracy, but from a practical standpoint, that's not the case. Despite the weapons having the exact same spread, the recoil is different. However, the difference benefits the Razor much more than it does the Merc. The Merc has recoil that pulls it up, left, and right. The Razor, and I tested this on camera too, is only pulled up and to the right. This affects the weapon's accuracy significantly. Now, most people find it easier to control vertical recoil and more of a challenge to control horizontal recoil. That's because vertical recoil pulls you in one direction, so to fight it, all you have to do is move your mouse in the opposite direction while you're firing. However, with horizontal recoil, the Merc can be pulled either way, which makes it much more difficult to compensate for. In the case of the Razor, both the x-axis and the y-axis of the weapon, the horizontal and vertical directions, are only pulled one way. This makes the recoil for the weapon much easier to control and will result in most people generally having more accuracy with the Razor than with the Merc when aimed down the sights. Even though technically the weapons have the same accuracy, that's only from a technical standpoint and not a practical standpoint. Practically speaking, the Razor is more accurate when aimed down the sights. At this point, we're looking at the Razor as a potential upgrade to the Merc. Your base stat changes will be as follows: loss of 8.3% fire rate, gain of 12% projectile speed, gain of aim down sights accuracy, gain of reload speed. Not even factoring reload speed into the equation, you're still being offered a reasonable deal. Then comes the second part of the Razor review, the attachment search in comparison to other options, specifically the Gauss Compact S. To take the Razor over the Merc, you gain access to the high-velocity ammunition and compensator attachments. However, the Gauss Compact S gives you access to more attachments, including a 6x scope, soft point ammo, and all the underbarrel attachments such as the grenade launcher, in addition to the attachments offered by the Razor. All the attachments the Razor offers, the Gauss Compact S offers, plus extra. So the question is, like I said in the previous video, how much do you want to trade stats for attachments? The Gauss Compact S offers soft point ammo, a 6x scope, and the underbarrels. Are these specific attachments worth enough to you to avoid taking the Razor and accept the stat losses? Let's compare the Gauss Compact S's stats to that of the Razor. Most of the accuracy stats would indicate similarities. However, there's an accuracy difference when firing from the hip while moving. A pretty significant one at that. Tell me, do you ever see anyone hip firing without moving? Maybe if someone's keyboard came unplugged, I can see that, but barring that special minority, I think that if you're hip firing, you'll always be moving. Now, the Gauss Compact S does have a higher rate of fire than the Razor, but it's not as high as the Merc, and the Merc stats were offering you a pretty good deal as it is. So let's do a side-by-side comparison of all three. The Razor has lower fire rate than the Merc, but better projectile speed, ADS accuracy, reload speed, and also has high velocity ammunition and a compensator option. The Gauss Compact S has lower fire rate than the Merc, but better than the Razor, significantly worse hipfire while moving stats, worse recoil than the Merc, and middle ground fire rate, in return for access to the underbarrel attachments, soft point ammo, and a 6x scope. If you're looking for something that has a style that's similar to that of the Merc, and not looking for super fast fire rate, or really heavy hitting rounds, or burst fire offered by other NC carbines, then the Gauss Compact S and the Razor are your only real alternative choices. Now this still leaves the issue of price of admission, 700 station cash or 1000 certs, not counting the cost of attachments. Both weapons cost equal station cash, though the Gauss costs half the certs. But let's be honest, it's clear the developers don't want you to buy weapons with certs. They want you to spend station cash. 1000 certs, as I have expressed before, I think is an unreasonable cost for a weapon, and I still think it's a ripoff. But, having station cash considered, the Gauss and the Razor are the same price. I think considering the various stat differences, the Razor is a solid upgrade to the Mercenary, and offers a good deal in terms of stat trade-offs. The Gauss doesn't offer good stat trade-offs in its package compared to either weapon, but offers soft point ammo, underbarrel attachments, and a 6x scope. So how much do you want those attachments? All in all, even if you do not consider the reload speed in the equation at all, the Razor offers you a high-quality deal in comparison to the Merc, and if you don't want to go for the stylistic differences of faster fire rate or harder-hitting bullets with a smaller magazine, I can recommend the Razor to you. So as it turns out, the Razor is a good upgrade to the Merc. The lack of fire rate can result in a worsened time to kill. However, a lot of meat is offered to the gun in return for that, which would assist time to kill in the way of accuracy and projectile velocity. That combined with the potential use of high-velocity ammo makes it a pretty solid pick. If it's right for you personally will depend a little bit on your playstyle, as the best benefit for this weapon over the Merc will come to people who aim down their sights a lot. If you slapped a laser sight onto your Merc and nearly always hip fire at close range and don't care about high velocity ammo or a compensator, maybe the Razor isn't for you, but I give the weapon a thumbs up. Thank you for watching my revisit of the Razor. I'm not currently planning to revisit the other two carbines because I gave both negative reviews in the original video, and when I went over their stats again, I found even more unappealing aspects, so revisiting them seems pointless. I hope you found the second look at the Razor useful in selecting your weapon of choice. Laters.